Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello and welcome to episode 154 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host, and with me in the darkness tonight. Don't know if this will be audio only or not. Probably because of Charmer in the darkness.
You can still see me.
I mean, kind of.
You're going to see my screen flash back and forth as I build this Jarl deck on February.
It's
as
so
we
bad
talk.
already. Like, it's already bad, and I know it is. But Derek Oswald is with me as always.
Create new deck.
He's doing what he did in Flesh and Blood this week live, which is build Jarl decks. And you know I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I sat there, like, what I did in Flesh and Blood this week mostly was just play a lot of LL Briar, trying to get my feet under me and understand like where I want to be playing Briar and LL. And I might just be throwing that all away because of one thing that I found out today. But let's kind of dive in. We're not looking to make this the longest episode in the history of Flesh and Pod or anything like that tonight. Charmer's head is hurting him. And not that that's any different than normal. It just hurts more than normal.
Yeah, it's just it's been like an all day thing. I don't know if it's like barometric pressure or what. It's just very compressed, and it's like one of those things that's been sitting behind my eyes all day. I was kind of blessed that
had the day off.
Yeah, I work for the government, so I had the day off, and I'd forgot that I had the day off, so I actually woke up like getting ready to try to power through with the headache. And when I logged in, and I worked for like 10 minutes before I figured out, just to tell you where my mind was at the start of the day. And when I figured out, I just went back to bed. I was like, no, we're going to take this blessing. We don't get many of them. And so I've been fighting it.
Yeah. I was out with a buddy last night because, same story where we didn't have work this morning. I was just like, I can stay up late. It doesn't really impact me. And so I was out with a friend. We were watching the Lions game, which was insane. And at some point in time he was talking about him and his wife they have a 6-year-old son, and he was staying at his grandma's, so they had the night, him and his wife had the night alone, and so they never get to have a movie night, so they had a movie night. And the last time that they did one months ago was she got to pick, and it was Amadeus. And so this time, like, he wanted to watch Kingdom of Heaven, which I like Kingdom of Heaven, and but his wife's like, I don't really want to deal with like a war movie type of thing. He's like, all right, well, have you ever seen V for Vendetta?
Oh,
and
man.
she was like, no. And he's like, buckle in then. She's like, what's it about? He's like, reality. And I was like, you know what? I really want to watch V for Vendetta tonight. So I came home and watched V for Vendetta. But it was an interesting night because you do that, then I come over, I'm like reading more, I'm like thinking that I'm going to see the banned and restricted announcement show up, and then I like look, and these little parentheses on the text of like it says US time, and I'm like, motherfuckers. And so then I went to bed. But we will hit that though here in just a second. We delayed recording just so we'd have that to talk about. But news and notes for the week, they're not dull. They're just not a plethora of them, as sometimes there are. But the headline in the event scene was that Battle Hard in Hiroshima happened. That's the first one on the World Tour towards the Players Championship. So the early leaderboard has Michael Fung at the top, as he was a victor on Enigma, not Victor. That's this top 8 though.
Yeah, it's like things really solidified after Worlds, huh?
Yeah, the top 8 was 4 Enigma, 3 Dash.io, and an Ira. Ugh. That's exhausting.
Yeah.
It won't be going forward. Just gonna throw that out there. That won't be the case from here on out. I also played D&D tonight, which was for the first time in I don't know how long. It's been at least a decade. hey, the Spurs won by 20. But yeah, it'd been at least 10 years and probably longer. If I'm, honest, it's probably closer to 15. But it was fun. I had a good time. But I did get to look at all the things too. We're going to start, with we'll take Battle Hardened Hiroshima and kind of talk about that with the banned and restricted announcement, because I feel like they kind of go together at this point. But I really want to start with the thing that causes Derek a non-zero amount of priapism, and that is the Jarl equipment was spoiled in Polygon, in a Polygon article this week. And there are some doozies in this thing. So we're going to start with the thing that we've all been kind of wondering about, and that is Summit the Unforgiving. Now, this thing is a beat stick. It is a 4-attack Earth Ice Guardian weapon pole arm, one-handed. Very important thing. It is a once per turn action for 6 resources to attack with it. So 6 for 4. That's not great rate. When this hits a hero, create a frostbite token in their exposed head, chest, arms, or leg zone. That does matter. And this also has a new keyword we haven't seen yet called heavy. Heavy is if this is the only card equipped to your weapon zones, it gets +2 attacks. So this becomes, if it's the only thing equipped in your weapon zones, it becomes a 6 attack. So we were having some discussion about this before I started recording. And I'm like, we should really be fucking recording this. And the beginning of it all centered around this weapon, because if you think about Guardian most of the time, at least in especially in the Oldham, you're playing Oldham, it was, you would set up your cycle so that you're, swinging with a Frostbonk, you're blocking out most damage, but you're setting up with Crown of Seeds and such, where you're setting up your cycle to then just finish them off with a bunch of red attacks that they just couldn't deal with. And this feels like it's going to be the opposite, where you're bashing with all your red attacks early and blocking with your shield, with most likely Stalagmite, and giving up some frostbites until the shield goes away. And then you've launched a bunch of reds. Now you're left with a bunch of blues. And so then it's just 6 and a frostbite, 6 and a frostbite, 6 and a frostbite, over and over and over again. So this feels like the most interesting weapon I think we've seen in Flesh and Blood. In my mind, we have some disagreements on the efficacies of this weapon, though.
I mean, I don't know if it's disagreements. I was just saying before we started recording that I was still on the fence about this because it costs the full flat 6, right? So one of the things that I liked when I would pilot Bravo, for example, is that yes, in a pinch, you could still just keep the 1 card and send it for 4. It was most often a 2-card pitch 6, right? Like, I'm not discounting that. But even then, when you would do that, a lot of times there was still some additional value. So you didn't have the threat of a frostbite, but you could, for example, pitch through tectonic plating. So you'll have a seismic set up for a following turn. And with Summit, yes, you have the frostbite part, but it's always that required 6, right? So you're required to keep at least 2 blues on those turns that you want to swing. And then I just would feel better. I love the design. I love the idea that it's something that, bonks for more when you free up your hand. I like the idea of something that does shift throughout the course of a game. The fact that Flesh and Blood has traditionally, anyway, degenerative design is one of the things that attracted me to the game, right? For most classes, for most heroes, you start the game at the strongest you will be, and you wear down over time. And this is one of those things that makes sense, but also bucks that trend, because you're going to likely, as you said, start with Stalagmite. So you're going to be hanging out and, you're going to have your pole arm, right? In this case, Summit kind of poking, doing its thing behind a shield. And then by the time the shield breaks, you're just like, all right, well, we're swinging heavy now, literally. And you're just whacking at people, right? I love the design flavor of that. Everything about this hero, let me just say, is just flavor a home run. I can't say enough about all of the little things that went into this hero. And so for that alone, I'll probably end up playing Summit, or it will at least be in the 80. But I do think that depending on how the meta shakes out and depending on what some of your other options are, that I would feel more comfortable. And this is what I was saying before we started recording it. If this was like a 4 or a 5, so that I had, again, either something that I could feed my additional pitch into other options, or if you're not running Stalagmite, if you ever want to include Rampart in your list, then you're almost required to run another weapon. Like, yes, you could still run this, but now you're locked in essentially to, you know, paying 6 for just 4 for the entirety of the game. And I do think Rampart is good enough into some classes to still likely have in your 80, specifically classes that break the combat chain a lot. Runeblade historically has done stuff like that. OG Dash, when you're doing the pistols, right, having access to Rampart can be a great way to like interrupt that game plan. I don't know how much of that will be occurring after the most recent announcements, and we'll get to that obviously, but I do think that if Rampart ever makes it into your 60, there is an argument to be made about running something like Redwood Hammer or Titan's Fist, depending on which way your build leans. But again, maybe you just dedicate 4 slots, right? Like it could be Stalagmite and Summit, and then, you know, for those matchups, you just go with a one-hander and Rampart when you need it. I don't know. It's going to take some testing, but that was my only reservation. I love everything else about the weapon. It's just that they really buckled down on you with that. You pay 6 for this. That feels rough.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, kind of going a little bit back what you were saying, like, I think that definitely if Crowned Seeds existed, that would change all of this. But the fact that, like, you have things like Coronet Peak for when you only get to keep 1 blue in your hand because you had to block with the rest of them, or anything like that, I think ends up being, you still have stuff to do, and it's not that big of a thing to keep 2 in hand. Like, it's a 2-card 6, right? CNC is a 2-card 6. You know, it's the same thing. It requires 2 cards to send 6 damage, and yes, you don't get to use your arsenal for this. I get it.
There's more to it than that, though, sir. Because not only do you not have access to your arsenal, but it's a 2-card 6, but you also can do things, and this is, believe me, a very big deal to me. It might not seem like it to everyone else, but I can pummel a CNC and I cannot pummel this. It is not lost on me that this is a polearm.
We don't know. We may finally get our pummel for axes and pole arms.
Yeah, but it won't be like discard, and discarding is like my favorite thing to make my opponents do.
Maybe it's bottoming. Maybe that's what it is.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, the fact that I cannot pummel this is not lost on me either.
You are a one-trick fucking pony in Guardian.
I like what I like.
I want to check the pummel box. May I please check the pummel box?
Yes.
Oh my god. Yeah, okay. At any rate, we can move on from the Summit discussion for the moment, because we do have other things to get to in here. The rest of this stuff is quite good. So the headpiece is all an ice cap. It's fine. It's when this defends together with an ice card, create a frostbite under the attacking hero's control, blade break, block 1. It's fine. It's not going to be played, most likely. It's fine for an armory deck, right?
Yeah.
Tectonic Crust, on the other hand, might get played, where if this defends, it's a 2 temper chest. When this defends together with an earth card, create a seismic surge. So it's not because it's kind of replacing that effect that you have with tectonic plating and Anothos. By rather than having to pitch into the plating, you're just blocking with the plating, so you still have your freed up 6 for your polearm for Summit.
Yeah.
So I think this one's fine and probably does get played a bit. Root-bound Trunks. I'm gonna guess you like this because it's actually a useful Guardian feat.
You know, yeah, I think it's going to depend on where I land on the build, but I am not as high on this as I thought I would be. I don't hate it.
It's wrought iron, legs.
Yes, I in that respect, it is definitely a step up. So, as somebody who very publicly hates Civic Steps, if I was going to be doing, the old iron legs, then I would replace it with this just for the sake of it. But I think that it will kind of depend on where I land in terms of the quote unquote deck building puzzle. But I keep staring long and hard at Well Grounded, because if you're not running Decompose, but you are running enough Earth cards for some of the other things, getting 4 in your banished zone is not like the easiest thing. But if the other side is like, if I do want to run like a weird Decompose package, like clearly Jarl is meant to be ice focused. Let's not make any mistake about it. Everything about the theming, but also the cards, you're going to end up with more ice than earth by a long shot. But if you run even just like a mini Decompose package, because there are some really powerful cards in earth that would want to do it, I think that Well Grounded might end up fitting, right? And so it's kind of like, do I want to try to make the Decompose work, and is it too much of a mini game within? But if I do that, then it's not just Well Grounded you open up, but you do also have Barkskin as well, right? So then you have that choice. Like, instead of it being Tectonic Crust, it could be that or Barkskin. I don't know. I've looked at just running earth cards for just like pitch/block purposes, right? The old Autumn's Touch and whatever. But I have been looking at some of the Decompose things, and I do think that if we do end up running enough, we would do well to take a long, hard look at Well Grounded.
Sure.
The fact that it's prevention means that it's also just like really good in the arcane matchups, and
just generally speaking, it's more useful. But I mean, text on Rootbound Trunks, for people who are wondering, it's a blade break, so it's iron rot legs, blade break, block 1. But when this defends together with an aura card, create an embodiment of earth token. So this blocks with a Channel Lake Frigid. If you need to, you're blocking for 5. So not bad, not great, not bad.
Yeah. Or a Channel Mount Heroic.
Or I'm a Channel Mount Heroic.
Because I like attacking.
Channel Mount Eisen. Right, I get it. Now we're going to go to probably the other card that kept you awake at night for other reasons than the normal things that keep us awake at night. And that's Gauntlets of the Boreal Domain.
Yeah, to me this was the biggest reveal. And specifically because I had, kind of already called it out on our podcast like previously. I kept saying that the biggest piece of the puzzle, or the thing that I felt like anyway that most people were forgetting, was the fact that Bravo's hero actually has text, and that the granting of Dominate to these crush effects was incredibly necessary. Turns out there's equipment that just does that for Jarl in the form of Gauntlets of the Boreal Domain. Now, it doesn't do it for everything like our good friend Bravo does, but he does it to arguably the most important stuff. Yeah. So I'll read through this one because I'm excited. So
all right, I'll let you do it.
We're going to do it. Once per turn action, you can pay 2 pitch. If an earth card is pitched this way, your attacks named Mangle get +2 attack this turn. And I do love that it's attacks. So in theory, in the future, if we can do some sort of weird like double Mangle turn, I'm extra excited about this. Now, the other half of this text says, if an ice card is pitched this way, your attacks named Mangle get Dominate this turn. Go again. Oh, by the way, these gloves also have Temper with a starting 2 block. So you get all of the value that you would have already gotten from Crater Fist or, whatever your Guardian gloves of choice are. But you also get, again, the ability to grant additional text to Mangle, which Jarl is built around, essentially. This is a very big deal. You and I were already kind of talking about how, the single card fuse Oakenolds were already getting some help because Jarl was getting some new Earth/Ice cards, but now it goes even just beyond the Oakenold stuff because pitching them to the gauntlets means that your Mangles are now going to be 10 with Dominate, which is a really big deal.
Yeah, that's rough. If you can find a way to pitch Earth and Ice into this, that's a lot. And so, you know, suffice it to say, with, you know, luckily it only affects, and it's got to be by, you know, they obviously designed it this way to affect 3 cards in your deck, like, so that once you're mangle free, now it's just purely block. Like, that's just what it does. And I also like that it's, you know, it's specifically hard to turn on both modes, so it's specifically hard to make it oppressive as all hell. Now, if you are playing Channel Mount Heroics or Autumn's Touches or whatever, you know, reds, and you're able to play red Earth cards, it starts to make it real easy to turn this on.
Yeah. And again, we not only have our Pulse of Isenloft, but Crumble to Eternity that we can run 3 of. So we just have 4 cards natively that can do it for you.
Yeah. And design wise, I think that this is kind of a home run, and it feels legendary. Like, they made a legendary, like, it is legendary rarity in the set. So this would show up as a gold foil in calling or higher. And it's just such a beating though. Like, when somebody has it, you're like, shit, that's a lot. It does make me feel, because of, like, you know, maybe needing to do this in weird ways, that maybe Jarl's going to be a Tunic player still, but Guardians have been doing that forever, where Tunic is their chest of choice in a lot of instances. Even Bravo, who tech plating is definitely built for Bravo, but maybe a different hero can take better advantage of tech plating at some point in time. Who knows?
I'll be honest, I'm holding out hope that the new Volda, when we finally get to the Guardian set, will also have a use for it. Because I do love tectonic plating. It was the first legendary I ever opened, which is part of the reason that I fell in love with Guardian. Because what happened was I bought, at the time, there was 3 major sets out, right? I had started playing right when Monarch came out. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get a box of like WTR, Unlimited, Arcane Rising, and Monarch. And out of my 3 boxes, I opened 1 legendary. It was Tectonic. And I went, all right, I'm a Guardian player. And that was that.
Yeah, is it weird that I don't actually remember the first legendary I ever opened? I want to say it was Mask of Momentum, but that might be wrong. I guess I don't know for sure. But I know that I opened a Fable before I ever opened a legendary. I do know that. So, because I remember having to Google what that symbol was, or why it didn't have any identifying factors or whatever. And I'm like, oh, never mind. This is a hyper expensive card. Well, that's better then.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like, you don't remember because you were rich to start.
I mean, kind of. I see that Jarl is going to be a pain in the ass. That's really what I see. And I am very happy that Crown of Seeds does not exist in Classic Constructed, because Jesus, that would be miserable. We did get one other card, and it is an Ice Guardian action, 3 cost blue, 3 block, Ice Fusion called Frozen to Death with insane art. And the text on this one is, if this was fused, you may destroy an equipment with a -1 counter, -1 defense counter, which is already what the fuck.
Right.
Then the text, or the rest of the text is, you may create a frostbite token and expose head, chest, arms, or leg zone. No go again. Just kind of a flat out. It's end of day the use case type of thing that we talk about
Right.
is the floor being a blue block 3 ice card. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we take those. So overall, I think that covers the Majestics we were expecting in this set. So 3, 6, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's 20 Majestics in the set that we know of so far. And there's supposed to be 23, so we're missing one. That sound right?
Yeah, that's what somebody was saying in one of the many Discords I'm in. I've been following a lot of Jarl discussions. It might have been ours. It was either ours or it was probably the Guardian Summit one. But I just remember somebody did the math. Yeah.
So my guess is we'll get, maybe an Earth Aura. Like right now we've seen nothing but ice. But kind of a who knows.
I was going to say, I wonder, or there's a part of me that kind of doubts that we'll get a true Earth one just because we already got the Earth Ice one, right? The Jarl specialization. So I think that might be enough. But also, if I'm being honest, we just got more Earth Auras in Rosetta. And I wonder if they are kind of like leaning on that.
Well, I was thinking specifically in a channel because there are 2 Earth channels and there are 3 Ice channels. So my thought was another Earth channel because that gives you parity. Because in Ice, there's Channel Mount Eisen, Channel Lake Frigid, Channel the Bleak Expanse.
Yeah.
And in Earth, there's this Millennium Tree and Mount Heroic. So I'm thinking that it's the 3rd Earth Aura, the 3rd Earth channel. But kind of a who's to say. And then you'd have parity on each side where you have one set of Ice auras, one set of Earth auras, and then a set of Ice Earth auras. So that was my thought process behind it. And maybe that's maybe that's just looking too far into it, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I guess we'll find out. You know what else we found out?
No.
Well, we're going to be allowed to play soon.
Are you sure?
Well, I mean, we did have a banned and restricted announcement. And there was a piece of me that was thinking no changes, but then the rest of me was screaming, no, they're not leaving High Octane alone. And then maybe an hour before the announcement hit at 2 p.m. Central, so 3 p.m. Eastern, I saw the actual top 8 from Hiroshima. They went, oh, fuck no, they are definitely hitting things. And they did.
I was going to say, to their credit, though, if I'm being honest, I would wager that those were locked in before and that was just a confirmation.
Reinforcement.
I would be very, personally anyway, I would be very shocked if that was not something that was already written up and going through like language localization and all of that stuff for the website, because a lot of times you plan that pretty far in advance. But
yeah, you do. Yeah, I agree, but it's like, it's really nice when you get that confirmation though, where you have this feeling or you have this read that these things are a pain in the ass and it may start warping the tournament scene. And then to see the results from a tournament where it clearly warped the tournament scene.
Yeah,
that feels pretty good to be right in that case. So we had 2 bans in Classic Constructed. We have High Octane, which James and Brian were real upfront during the book banning discussion that this thing's going to go. Like, this was not out of left field.
Right.
We knew this was going to go. The second one was Count Your Blessings Blue. So I am a big fan of the surgical approach.
Yeah.
Of saying, I liked it with Bonds, and I like it here, where you're like, okay, the biggest problem is the exponent factor. It's when you play all of them. And so let's shave the one that makes it easier to play the others,
Mm-hmm.
and then remove the 6, 7, 8, exponent from, or addition from the game. So now +5 is the highest you get. So you get, 8 health is your high benchmark, which, doesn't sound like a ton, but when you think about the way that that life gain stacks, I mean, it's removing a ton. You're removing what it'd be 6, 7, and 8. So you're removing 21 plus 3 is 24 potential health from their pool. That's
So,
pretty good. That matters a ton. Look at every game that Gregor Kowalski played in the top 8 of Worlds. That they would have been non-games at that point in time.
and it does even more than that though as well. So like that's just right off the top, but you're also arguably taking out the one that provides you the most utility because it's a blue,
resources,
right?
Yeah.
Like that's not irrelevant. And then going even a step further when you talk about potential counterplay cards. And I will say, I loved that in the article. I love that they called out that, count your blessings might not actually be that big of a problem when the card pool is different. It's just that in the current state of the game, there might not be enough viable answers or counters. And so we'll revisit it. And so with that in mind, right, if you are somebody who, hey, you want to play Gravekeeping or something, when somebody has 9 copies of a card, getting that first one, even if it is really impactful, doesn't feel as impactful. But like now, right, if they play the first one and you know that they've only got 6 and you get rid of that one, and now you're further reducing the snowball value of it, it's going to just feel like, at least as a player, you have a lot more agency.
You did more. Yeah.
So a lot of times balance adjustment, I've caught flack for saying this in the past, but I really stand by this. A lot of times balance adjustment isn't actually about balancing by numbers or being fair. A lot of times it's based on player experience. And Agreed. I do think that this is going to do a lot for that.
Yeah, I lived in the world where Sensei's Divining Top got banned because it made shit take too long.
Yeah.
Like, that was the reason. Okay. This is fine. Like, this is... I think that if you looked at the community at large talking about count your blessings, most people were on the I don't like this card existing. Like it's miserable to play. It's miserable to play against. So do we have to have it? And this is more elegant than just axing the card and moving on. And I'm in favor of that. Does that mean that CYB decks are dead? Potentially. I doubt it. There's still enough in there that it extends the game. You just better find a way to win the game earlier.
Right.
And I think that putting that onus out there is vital. I think that that's really, really important. That's where I went with it. But High Octane, get that the fuck out of here. Like, honestly, Jesus Christ. It was fine with Dash, with Inventor Extraordinaire. It started to get less fine real fast with Dash.io cranking items off the top, and then Cerebellum Processor being able to draw you cards, and then the snowball effect got real. So getting rid of it, okay, fine. We had Blitz changes too. So Belittle finally gone out of Blitz with Zen being brought back in. Yep. The article basically said, look, I know y'all love your lightning bolt stapled to a dark ritual. I do too. But too much. Just too much. And so it's gone for the time being. It probably comes back when Zen's gone, though. It's not been a scourge in Blitz. Instead, it's been... It makes some of those decks a little more consistent, but I think in the case of Zen, it probably does make it too good. Being able to play Belittle to go get a blue, to play so that you can transcend like basically letting you tutor your way through it if you don't need the resource. Like yeah. Again, totally get it. The other one I think is very funny, and it's Hadron Collider. Now, you might be thinking, Hadron Collider, isn't that just like a super innocuous card? Well, you're right up until a couple weeks ago. Because it turns out that they, right, wrong, or indifferently, made Data Doll the best deck in Blitz by a large margin. Oops. Largely off the back of things like Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
I mean, and they went into this where they love that Data Doll's good. I think everybody's kind of excited that that Data Doll is good. But if you look at something as simple as Hadron Collider, it's, you know, the red is enters play, it costs 1. You can crank it, 4 steam counters. When you boost an attack, destroy this, it gets plus X, where it's X is the number of steam counters. Now, these kind of go in cycles with Data Doll and all the boosting she does and getting items off boosting. And so the game ends in a turn. That's not good. We don't want that. So instead they just said, all right,
we want Kraken's Aether Vein.
I mean, I like...
Because that took like 2 turns, you know?
Yeah, this one just takes boost my first attack, hit a Hadron Collider, put it into play, boost my next attack, plus with a Hadron Collider, hit a Hadron Collider, put it into play. It's like, okay. And you don't have to crank them, so they just have their full complement of steam counters, or you can crank them and get extra action points to shoot gun.
Yeah.
Great.
Pew pew.
Pew pew. So I understand that one having to go. Like, that makes sense to me. I do love that Data Doll is good, though. That does bring me some amount of joy. Now we get to talk about the thing that actually surprised me. We're going to Living Legend.
Yeah, this surprised me, and I just want to say we're in Living Legend now, but I'm actually kind of upset that we didn't get Awakening unbanned in Classic Constructed with Jarl around the corner.
That is not okay.
Okay, but this to me feels like it's maybe on the same level. I don't know. The format has settled down quite a bit, and I do think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you know, back when they started to put a focus on it, I was on record as saying I don't think that it's nearly as bad as it looks. I think that what happened was everybody had a bit of both nostalgia and recency bias, and so that's why we ended up with like our 8 Starvo top 8 sort of thing. But even back then, I didn't think that Starvo was that leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. And I do think that this move is reflective of that, but I'm happy about it. So
yeah, let's dive in here. So first off, Peter Budensick has caused irreparable damage to Kano now, and got Open the Floodgates restricted. Now, Open the Floodgates basically was allowing Peter to kill on turn 0 a bunch. Turns out it's pretty good if you can chain them together and keep drawing cards and keep going through your deck and blast somebody into oblivion before they can do anything about it.
It's almost like when you played it, it would open the floodgates of the Kano experience. It
sure did. That's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah.
Weird that the card is named that, right?
Right.
But it just took one tournament of Kano running good for them to go, okay, fuck this. Absolutely not. They were not willing to entertain mini Kraken's Aether Vein. I'm not sure from a unbiased standpoint if I agree with this ban. From a bias standpoint, best restriction ever. Get the Wizards the fuck out of here. But if I'm thinking in an unbiased perspective, it's the Living Legend format. And it's not like they just get to find that card automatically or anything. But it's just one of those bad experiences when they do. You know?
Yeah.
So I get it. But I'm happy it's gone.
But it's one of those things where the bad experience usually only occurs when they find multiple. So
right.
Really what's happening, in my opinion, with the restriction is just them saying, like, this still lets you play the card, it still lets you have, like, an impact, but you don't just, oops, I win. Look at me. I fell down in the W column. Yeah, you still can, but, you know, if the problem is multiples, then you just take away the multiples.
Okay, so this one is the one that made me sit down. They unrestricted Starstruck in Living Legend.
Yeah.
So
it's because we have enough classes that don't care about attacking again.
Yeah, I think that might be true, honestly. But
I firmly believe that is why, and not just that we have them, but that they are actually being played in Living Legend.
Yeah, I'm in a spot now where I'm considering throwing away the work I've put into Briar and just pivoting straight back to Starvo. Because the problem I was running into playing Starvo is it felt like I had too many instances where I had a juiced attack, you know, with a Starvo reveal, but it was just vanilla damage. It just didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And all the things that were really good at doing something were restricted cards and harder to find. And so it's like vanilla damage, whatever. And I just ended up in spots where people could just take it and then present the same or more back to me. And I was just like, this doesn't have as much power potential to it because in reality, you're just presenting raw damage.
Right.
Starstruck is not raw damage.
It is not.
That is the least raw of damage.
I mean, you're going to feel raw.
Oh, you're going to get raw. And this is maybe the first time that I'll ever say this. And I'm not sure how I feel about saying this, but it's not a red. That feels real good.
Right.
So when you're presenting 12 dominate at somebody with go again, mind you, and you're able to play this off 2 blues and a tunic counter, so you can still just Winter's Wail them after this. And then you're probably getting the crush effect, which is, you know, the only attacks that they may play or activate during their next turn are attacks with base power greater than the damage dealt this way. How many attacks out there are greater than a base of like 9? Like Starstruck, Crippling Crush.
Right.
Pulverize. 10-foot tall.
I was waiting for you to get there. I'm glad you got to the card that I was. It's the reason why I am just locked on Starvo. I think whenever I mess around with Living Legend, because
10-foot tall and bulletproof.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
at some point, like, I'm going to live the dream where you Arsenal one and then you assemble Voltron with one with your rest of your hand so that I can play one with Dominate and go again into another one like that. Yeah. I don't need a hand at the end of the turn. I want to be 20 foot tall and bulletproof with a Kevlar vest on, right? Double me up both ways.
Yeah, but if you get, I mean, you can do that theoretically. And I also think that it's safer. This sounds weird, but I think it's safer to unrestrict Starstruck than it is to unrestrict Crippling Crush.
Oh, 100%. Because again, what I was getting at before is that there are enough classes now where attacking is not necessarily their primary game plan. So not only do we have, more wizards getting represented, right? We've got Icelander, we've got Kano showing up. Some people, were messing around with our green lady in the Crackers Aethervein world. There's still a couple kind of doing that thing, but even outside of that, right? Like you still have a couple of people trying to pilot the Bloodsheath Visceri stuff, and if you have to take a turn not attacking, that's not the end of the world for that deck.
Nope.
There's other decks that can do proper setup turns. It's just not, I think, as pivotal or as brutal as it was when the format first rolled out, just because again, whether it was recency bias, nostalgia, or whatever, there was a lot of people that were just like, I'm going to play Starvo or Chain. Like when Living Legend popped out, like those were the two. And it turns out Starstruck in the mirror is still really good, and against Chain is really good. And that caused a lot of problems, right? So,
infinite amounts of problems.
When you look at it from that perspective, don't get me wrong, Starstruck is a hell of a card, but Crippling Crush being able to still disrupt the wizards, still mess up those Visceri setup turns, still do all of those other things, I think is more impactful to the overall field. And so if you're going to give Bravo back some tools or give him some more to work with, I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, this is the one that's probably the least damaging to have back as a multiple, because really, like, there was one tournament in LL where Starvo had 3 copies of all the things, right? There was just that first one in Spain. I think the restrictions came right after that.
There might have been 1 or 2 other smaller events, but I'm pretty sure it was just like one big event.
So we really don't have a ton of data that lets us know whether this being unrestricted makes the deck that much better. But it's hard for me to imagine that it doesn't.
So I fully understand that all of the setup stuff that is going to make Jarl do his stuff is obviously specializations, specifically the unforgiving block. I think that's a big part.
Right.
But I would like to point out to people who are deck building and brewing that Gauntlets of the Boreal Domain are not
legal
Jarl.
in Starvo.
They are legal in Starvo, and Mangle is legal in Starvo. So if you really want to go wild, I was talking earlier about hey, it's all cards named Mangle for a turn. Well, if your first one is triggered off of Starvo, right? Like you pitch a blue in Tunic, and then you send that first one, your second one could
just
also
double mangling.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Could also get some help. So I'm just saying, that's obviously like the super high roll, but there is something to consider. And like, let's be honest, the gloves have always been kind of a toss up anyway.
I activated Crater Fist in Starvo probably sub 10 times.
Right.
Now, that being said, the matchups that I did activate Crater Fist in Starvo was mind-numbing, soul-crushing bullshit.
Sure.
Because it just ended somebody.
Yeah. And let's be honest, like that's kind of what Starvo used to do back then. But what I'm trying to say is that if you even just want to mess around with it for various matchups, you're not losing a ton of value because you're still at the worst getting the same amount of block you were already getting 90% of the time. So it is something to consider.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Can't wait to fuck around. Like, I've got my 2 decks for Chicago kind of lined up. What I think I want to play if I don't decide to do the history of draft thing, which that's still a thought because I don't think it's filled up yet. Did you know about that one?
No.
So you can pay, I think it's $300, but your $300 gets you a draft of every draftable set in the history of Flesh and Blood it's 64 people, and then normal prizes. So with the draft, so like your normal ticket prizes that you'd get for events through all the drafts, they give you sleeves, they give you all the playmats for the weekend, and they give you 3x of all the promos.
But because you're doing it for everything, does that just eat your entire weekend then?
It's your entire weekend. Yep.
Because I really want to play in the Living Legend event.
Yeah, that was my thing. Is I'm just like, you kind of have to pick between the two.
Right.
Now,
but the problem is I love limited though. Like I love drafts so much. Oh.
Yeah, Peter has decided to make our lives suck by making this decision.
Oh my God, that is such a... Man, I'm going to have to ask my wife which one I should do.
Why your wife?
Because then it's Sophie's choice.
Why the fuck did I walk into that? Why?
I don't know. I thought you would see that coming.
What the fuck is wrong with me? I should have seen that coming from so far away. God damn it. Jesus fuck. I'm so mad at myself right now. I should have. Yep. That's on me. That is on me. I walked straight into that. Okay. I think we're just going to go to listener questions now.
Yeah, we probably should.
We have an email question, by the way. Somebody emailed us with a question, which I think is like the second time that's happened in 154 weeks. But this came from Mr. DBK Shaggy. Sure. What's your thoughts on product availability and price control? I live in a remote region and no card shops that are not under an hour and a half drive. The two that I can drive to don't even carry Flesh and Blood. I've recently got into the game pretty heavy along with a friend. Problem is prices on sealed products, and we want trying to find them. Example, Armory decks. Live in West Virginia, by the way. My condolences. Nothing here.
Where do Rune Baby, aren't they in West Virginia?
They're in West Virginia, but West Virginia is, so if they're in the sort of no man's land of West Virginia, yeah, they'd be about an hour and a half away from civilization, effectively. So Charleston and Hurricane are probably the closest to them, and can't recommend that crew enough. I know that I've spoke effusively in the past about how much I love the West Virginia crew and the Charleston crew. The same goes here. If you're listening, Shaggy, and you can make it to the boardroom in Hurricane or Charleston, please do. The crew is amazing. The stores are great. They serve beer at the LGSs. Can't go wrong. And now price control and availability. So I know that a lot of availability for these things are based on gem profiles and event running. So your limited run stuff like Armory decks will get allocated based on, player counts and events run and things like that. So it does not surprise me that you're having a hard time finding them if they don't carry Flesh and Blood in general, because then they don't run events either.
Right.
I have gone on record in the past, and I will still do it now if somebody needs me to. I live in an area where we have multiple stores that do real well at getting stuff. So if you are looking for something in particular, all you have to do is pay me what I paid for it and shipping, and I'm more than happy to send it if you're having a hard time finding it. And everything here in Iowa's MSRP, because none of our stores try to gouge our players, which is, great. But I think that, so getting into Flesh and Blood in those remote area and underserved areas is a little hard. I think the first step is if you have like a relationship with an LGS owner that's closer to you or whatever, try convince them to open a gem profile and open a gem account and see if you can order a bit through them or whatever, a lot of the times if you start incentivizing the stores, they'll do a better job of getting the stuff in, but that's really about all you can do in this regard. And I think that they do okay on product availability. They're not a huge company. They're not backed by Hasbro. They don't have that sort of that supply chain capability to just send product far and wide. They also don't market to big box stores. They don't do any of that. And so availability really does come down to the stores that actually want it.
Right.
And that can get difficult. You do always have online options, min-max, for example.
Yeah, so it's funny. That's what I was just doing, is I was trying to see what their sealed and whatever looked like, because I was going to repeat the same thing. My rule of thumb is always buy local if I can, and that's simply because, as Logan pointed out, LSS supports the stores that are running events, and so if you buy from local and you help with those, again, I talk about this all the time. I would love to go to my weekly armories every week if I could. They're just on Wednesdays, and that's the worst night of the week for me. So except for the times when my other podcast is canceled for recording for the week, I just can't make it. But whenever they run weekend events, I try to show up, and I still try to buy my stuff from them, that sort of thing. Always buy local. And then if you can't, what I always recommend is trying to find any, LGS, if you will. I know they're not technically local at that point, but basically any store that is still trying to do stuff in the space, and then support them, right? So it could be a min-max. I'm just going to name some of the ones that I have bought from in the past, right? Min-max, Kayfabe Cards, The Realm. Those were ones I used to frequent a lot. Here in Michigan, they're like an hour away from me, and I do still attend their events when I can. But another thing that I'll do is I'll buy from, there's a place called the Upkeep Games here in Michigan, and they have an online store. They have 2 locations as well. They will ship things to you, or what I usually do is I'll buy stuff for pickup, and then when I show up to play in their events, I can just, pick it up and do what I need to do. So, that would be my next recommendation, is just ask people in any of the community Discords, hey, who are your local stores? Do they have an online thing? And then I would start checking those. But, going with somebody like min-max, you can never go wrong with, because they're well known in the community. So not only are they at all the events, so again, kind of speaking to what I was just saying with what I do with the Upkeep Games here, if you do love the game and you get to the point where you're going to travel to a calling or something like that, if you order from some of these more established stores like min-max, you can order with the intent to pick up. It's usually an option on their site, right? So, you can say, hey, are you going to be Pro Tour LA was last year. Now, granted, I went there, but I didn't go there. But anyway, this is still a good example. You could place your order for pickup there, so that when, you need the cards for whatever deck it is or what have you, you could show up and say, hey, I have an order, and they're very well organized. They have a good system. They'll get it for you in no time. So, yeah.
And hashtag no free ads. So Peter, you owe us a hoodie or something. Moving on, Sephiroth asks, Adult Volda has been confirmed for the Guardian Mastery Pack. Will they keep her life total the same, or make her the first hero above 40?
I hope not.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. Is I don't want an over 40 hero.
No, I'm actually okay with that. I just hope personally, not that I have anything against young Volda, I hope that we get something mechanically new. And if that's the case, it's not likely that would also come with more than 40 health. It's entirely possible we do just get an adult Volda as is, but I personally kind of hope that we get something mechanically just new for her.
I really do hope it's still Seismic Surge, oriented.
Yeah. I just feel like right now there's not. Now it's possible that within that set they just print more to support it, so that's also a thing. But there's just not enough, I think, good ways to make use of the existing young one. I think that's also why we just haven't seen her take off in Blitz compared to some of the other Guardians and so forth. And so I would like to see Volda still fall into that category of being one of the more aggressive Guardians.
Sure.
You know, because right now it's really kind of just Bravo. In both of his incarnations, he's meant to be played a bit more offensively than, say, the other Guardians. Not to say that
Victor's pretty offensive oriented.
I mean, he is, to me, he's like the middle of the road. So the reasoning that I have for this is like on the actual hero itself, like the text for both Bravo Showstopper and Bravo Star of the Show are things that are basically all about offense, right? Like they're most beneficial.
Well, Starvo's a Runeblade.
Well, Starvo's a Runeblade, sure. But my point though is like when you look at that hero, you can tell like I'm supposed to do something offensive with it without any other context, right? You look at the hero card itself and you're like, okay, here's my payoff. It's when I do the thing. Victor can be played offensively, absolutely. But to me, he is, for lack of a better term, not that Guardians ever feel this way, but he's like the most mid-range of the Guardians because I think he rides the line the best. And then you look at somebody like Oldhim, and even though, you know, we're doing fun stuff with Mangle, the reality is I think Jarl is also a very defensive one. I feel like they're more on the defensive end. And so when I look at Volda, especially young Volda, again, the idea is, you know, you're making seismic surges and you're drawing cards, right? Mm-hmm. That seems like offensive stuff to me.
No, it does.
So I would just, in some way, shape, or form, either have her get more support if it is just an adult version of young Volda, or I would like to see her get something mechanically new and unique that is just also supporting like one big attack. Because I know brutes have big attacks, but even to some degree, they are kind of swinging wildly, right? They have access to go again in their kit. Yeah, right? That's the point. What has always appealed to me most about the Guardian playstyle is that idea of like, I'm going to take whatever you've got because I'm going to go all in and then just hit you with something huge. And I would just like to see more, you know, heroes outside of Bravo, both, you know, incarnations that kind of help you with that, right? Because to me, it's kind of cool that you just take it on the chin and then you just clap back extra hard. That's what's fun to me.
More heroes that die to illusionists. Gotcha.
Yeah. Look, I've accepted I will never be good into illusionists, ever. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. Next one's from Johnny Pastrami at it again. If you had to choose between being completely hairless or covered in hair akin to the Wolfman, which would you choose? Come on, bro.
Easy.
That's so easy.
Easy.
Like, I don't wear a beard for nothing.
Completely hairless.
Nah, give me all the hair.
Smooth as a baby's bottom. If I had the choice, the only reason I have this is because it's two reasons. My wife, the last time I shaved, which was almost 10 years ago, actually, I shaved my face. I didn't tell my wife I was going to do it. I walked out of the bathroom. She literally looked me in the eyes and said, no, and then walked away. That was the entirety of the discussion we have. And so I've had a beard ever since. So that's reason number one.
Good talk.
But also, I don't like the maintenance that comes with like having to shave every day, right? Like a little like trimming and whatever is fine, but like the full shave back when I was doing it used to like bother me. But if I could get away with no maintenance, I would take that in a heartbeat, because I don't like my hairs getting stuck in stuff. I don't like when I'm working out, you'll get like the tugs, right? Or at least I do.
Sure,
on the gym clothes and whatever, and it pulls and whatever. I don't like we don't pull punches here. Let's just be honest, right? I don't want to shave my ass anymore, man. I don't want to shave my chest anymore. I don't want to shave any of that. And so like if I could just not do the maintenance and get away with all that, I absolutely sign me up. No, I would rather just be the dude from Dune, right? Austin Butler's character from Dune. I would rather be that than be like a hairy wolfman who, like, when I take a shit, it goes through a mesh of hair and it comes out. Like,
that's what a bidet is for.
Yeah, but I don't want to have to like have shampoo next to my bathroom like toilet area because I have to wash the hair. We're talking wolfman hair, dude.
No, I get it.
I don't want to deal with it. All right.
I'm too northern coded, man. Like it's that.
Yeah, but you can always put more clothes on.
Yeah, but if you didn't have
That's
to.
why I love cold weather. Can always put more clothes on.
You can only take so many off.
Right.
But you can also put more clothes on. I tell people all the time.
Since we're on the subject of cleanliness, right? What's the difference between toilet paper and the shower curtain?
I couldn't tell you.
That is disgusting, bro.
I know, right?
You should work on that. You should know the difference.
I mean, I theoretically do.
I kind of always wondered about you, but now
if I've had a lot of drinks, like things kind of blend together. You use what you got to use. Like it's better than the people used to share the sponge on a stick, but you know, that's just the nature of things.
All right. Sometimes. So Sonny has a question for the pod.
He does. Sonny has a question for the pod. Does Ellis's have a program that recognizes people in the community? Like nothing crazy, but like, do they do anything if a store wanted to show them recognition? Is that something they would have to do at the store level? They really don't have anything at the store level that I know of. They do or have in the past done things for content creators, and they do treat content creators actually really well, generally speaking. So, but
it was kind of related to content creators, but kind of not. So like at events in the past, and I know this because you and I actually got to be a part of it, and it was very, very cool. It was some of the most fun I've had at an event. We were given a stack of cards for good deeds, and then we could give those out to whoever, right? So you talk about recognition. It was just like, hey, if you're doing something cool for the community, here's your good deeds promo. And I loved that. But yeah, at the store level, not a lot directly. I will say that there is some leeway given to how some of the armory kit stuff gets handled, because I believe there's usually like only a couple of mats given out, and so some stores like raffle them and whatever. But I've been to stores where to like help promote new players and whatever, then they will do like a community award, if you will, right? So that they will either give it to a new player who's learning or whatever. And so if a store wanted to, utilize some of that to show recognition, that's well within their purview, but it's not like a direct program.
Yeah. I could see that, honestly. And that does make sense. Like here, it's always been raffle oriented. I guess we did do the community, like the People's Champion community leader type thing a couple of times and tried that. It just turns into a popularity contest.
Well,
to a degree.
So it wasn't so much like a community champion thing, like popularity. And again, this is one of those things where it kind of depends. But back when I was able to attend armories, when they were on a Tuesday night, and I would go to a place in Grand Ledge called Portal, so we would do a raffle if there was like a mat, for example, that was of like very high interest, right? But 9 times out of 10, what would happen is we would, like, if nobody for sure wanted one, then we would just kind of put it into a pool. And when new players would show up, we would just give them a mat for coming in and hanging out and hoping that they would come back, like that sort of thing. Right. Gotcha. Or if you came in and if you came in with a friend to teach them the game, then like we would give that to the friend and that sort of thing to just kind of promote community engagement.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that does what you're looking for at the very least. But as far as anything that's specific for that, not really. But yeah, the good deeds promos, they haven't done a content creator kit in a couple of years now, right?
How would I know?
Jesus. Okay. Are we going to go to Prague?
I really want to. I really, really want to.
Because I keep looking, I have the tracker on. It's still like $635.
I really want to, Logan. Don't say that to me. I really want to.
It's pretty cheap.
I know.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that later. Because I have...
I really want to.
Like I said, we'll talk about that offline. Because I'm I've a couple of times almost bought the ticket.
Yeah, well, like I said, my problem is I don't know for sure if I can do that and London. And at first I was fine with just doing Prague over London because this set is going to mean the world to me, right? For me to go there, but I may have tonight in passing conned Sophie into wanting to go to London.
I actually need her to go to London.
So
I need you to tell Sophie I need her to go to London.
Well, because we've been exploring our options for a couple of years now. It's no secret. But we've been exploring our options for moving to other places, and Scotland has been on the list. In fact, one of the people who got me playing Flesh and Blood in the first place, my good friend John Blevins, is
Blevins.
Yes, Blevins, right? You want to know why you haven't heard from him in a while?
I haven't seen Blevins in forever.
Because he just got married and moved to Scotland.
Oh,
and
so that's good for him.
Between so ancestrally on my mom's side, we come from Scotland. Her maiden name was Mackinder. She was a huge ancestry and genealogy freak. She traced us all the way back. I lost a lot of the info when she passed away, sadly, but I know that's where we come from. So it was between that and now, if we did move there, I would at least know some people there. I've always loved the Scottish Highlands, that's my vibe. So what I did in passing today is I said, hey, if we want to just extend the stay, you could go to the Pro Tour London with me, and then we could stay extra days and take the train to Edinburgh and just explore Scotland to see if it's a good fit for us. Because her big thing is she's totally okay with moving out of the US, but she just wants to visit first, right? She wants to
I get it.
Feel comfortable. And so I was like, hey, it's a 4-hour train ride from London to Edinburgh, if you want to do that sort of thing. So I may have talked her into it, and if I do that, then it makes Prague harder, but I really want to go to Prague with every bone in my body. So
like I said, flights out of here are cheap.
I know. Maybe I hate doing it, but maybe I just sell some of my collector fab stuff for the heroes that I don't play often.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. Is there's a few things I could just.
There's a lot of stuff I should have sold a long time ago because they're not. They took nosedives in value, but I'm sitting on a bunch of stuff that I could probably.
We have had people say to give them the GoFundMe link, so there's that too. It's don't threaten me with a good time, but normally I'm I don't like doing that just because it's a. Either I have the means or I don't type of thing, Yeah. And it's probably just pride in general.
It's 100% a pride issue for me, but
yeah,
man, if there was a time where I might swallow my pride, it's for this set. This is.
Well, I just heard how much you'd swallow for this set, so that's fantastic. Last question. We're going to actually be out of here in a decent amount of time. It's from Geeks First. With all this hype around the variety of bannings, and possibly you recording this before the real banning actually is announced, fuck off.
We got it right this time?
We got it right this time, and which would be quite hilarious on par with the show. Yes, it would have been quite hilarious on par with the show. Blah, 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 blah. Do you ever see LSS banning a specific card for a hero only or a class only if it's a generic to help other heroes play that specific card that would otherwise adversely impact gameplay? The current high point being High Octane and how it would dramatically impact Max because it needs that to Nitro much more than, say, Inventor or IO. Or does the Living Legend system take care of the rest? So we've talked about that before, about banning a card for a specific hero. And I think the issue is simply logistics. It is having to track that on deck lists and stuff like that.
So here's the thing. We have talked about this before, and it came down to two things. I think we only talked about one, but we're now finally at the stage in Flesh and Blood where we actually have a reasonable amount of game history, right? It's no longer just a new game. So part two is relevant. The two things are accessibility and precedent. So from the accessibility standpoint, which is what Logan is talking about, it's the same reason that they avoid things like errata when at all possible, right? Because you want cards to do what cards say they do, but also you either want cards to be banned or not. And it's the same reason why we get things like the announcement that we got today, right? Where they might ban a color, like a blue pitch of something, but it's not going to be for this hero or that hero or whatever. It just is or it isn't, because that's the most easiest way to digest it if you're a new player. And I know that it's one of those things where like it's very difficult to think about like invested players and you know, whether they would know or not know, but the reality is that not everybody is an invested player, and new player acquisition and retention is incredibly important for a trading card game,
honestly.
So you want things to be accessible and digestible for them. So part 2 though is the precedent, which is they have not done that in the past when they had very clear opportunities to do so, not just in today's, but, you know, in Living Legend, right? When Channel Lake Frigid was gone and everyone said, hey, Icelander is paying for Starvo's sins. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, 100% correct.
Every time that we've seen, you know, ninjas being hit, and then you have like the Katsu main going, hey, wait, you know, Fi's doing this thing. Why am I getting done dirty? Hey, Zen's doing this thing. Why am I getting done dirty? Right? They've always had opportunities to do those sorts of things, and they have chose not to, because again, it is very difficult to become accessible. And even further, to Logan's point, when you start talking about logistics, it's not even just like, you know, deck lists and whatever. It's, imagine you go to like a website and you now have to search for like banned and restricted stuff per hero, and the game has, you know, 30, 40, 50, or,
and
know,
it's only going to get more,
you know, a decade in the future, right? Where it's a League of Legends roster, but instead it's Heroes for Flesh and Blood, where it's just massive, and you're like, and I have to look through all of these. It's just not, it's not what you want. So
no, like, and I agree. I think that you can be surgical to the point of banning colors or banning pitches. I don't think you can be that surgical without causing more problems than you're trying to solve for. It just doesn't make sense, because like, let's say take everything that Derek said off the table and go simply to a tournament, and you have a bunch of judges doing their level best to do deck checks and stuff like that. And they're reading through, and people's handwriting is bullshit some days. And so they're just trying to parse things together as fast as they can to get these decks back to people. And they miss that, you know, there's count your blessings in the list. Okay. And they miss the fact that it's the one hero out of 50 that you can't play count your blessings in. Well, that's fucking, you know, that's a mistake that is tournament warping. And having that as just another check seems critically difficult. So to me, that alone is disqualifying and just banning things specifically for a hero. Now, but when you're doing it by color, every single deck list, you know that they can't have that color of that card on there, like, regardless. So that's much easier to track in my mind than trying to ban it for a hero, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
That's all that matters to me. I only ever want to make sense to you.
That makes no sense to me.
I'm about to say, is that terrifying to you?
Sorry, if you want to make sense to me, you just did not make sense to me. You've created the paradox.
So if I'm going to fly from...
No, stop. Don't do this.
If I'm going to fly from Chicago to Prague...
You should list our patrons and then thank them.
No. We need to do this right now, just so you have an idea. So, like, let's say we want to go from the 14th through the 22nd.
Oh, that's way too much time for me.
I think so? You can't do that long?
No, dude, I would have to, like, get it in and out as fast as possible to make it work.
Okay, so we would do the 15th through the 20th then. That's so weird. It's the same money to fly out of Des Moines as it is from Chicago for those dates. But if you extend it one day and you go from the 15th to the 15th to the 21st, so not even a week, from Chicago. So, you don't have to drive all the way to Des Moines. Now, you do have one real rough layover in this. And so you would... But, with the dollar amounts here, it's kind of hard to argue. It's $446.
Yeah, but then how much do I have to spend extra? Like, it's less if I go one more day, but then I also have to do hotel and overnight parking for an extra day. Right.
But I'm just saying that we can just also just fly out of Des Moines, and then you can just park your car here, and it's $635 or whatever. It's like $800 for premium, which is what I'd probably do, because if I'd want to check bag anyway. But yeah, just saying, not that bad. But yeah, let's thank some patrons, because I'm done trying to convince Charmer to go to Prague for now. We have our associate producers. We have Andy, Sindra, Jacob, and the Salty Sea Cat. For executive producers on up, we have Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon, Dom Lance, Good Thrust, Matt Two Tokes, Pox Honest, Vintox 18. Some people will just want to watch the world burn. Preach. I am one of them, apparently. Philip, Rich, and Sergeant Swanson. If you are interested in becoming a member of the Patreon, go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. Pick a tier, any paid tier gets you to Fab After Dark. We'll be recording one of those here soon. Or not recording, doing one of those soon. We don't record that shit. For anybody that wants, any of the paid members that want to join, and hang out with us in there, just more of a discussion with y'all, and we don't record it, so that if you need unfiltered, unvarnished views, you're gonna get them. Not that we varnish much here by any stretch of the imagination. We are definitely not Boy Scouts. If you need to contact the show, you can actually just reach us at fleshandpod@gmail.com. I've gotten 2 emails these past 2 weeks from listeners. It's been incredible. And you can also, find us on Twitter for the moment at FleshPod. That is changing. Otherwise, you can find us on Blue Sky. Just search for Flesh and Pod, or go find the Fab Content Creator Starter Pack that's out there and just hit follow all. Then you'll get both of us plus the show. Derek, where can they find you?
Probably Googling flight prices to Prague.
But
also
I'm helping.
Yeah. You can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me in our Discord. Discord's the best place to find me. You can ping me. You'll usually get an answer.
Yeah, that's same here. It's just so easy to join our Discord and just find us. Yeah. It's normally pretty simple.
You can see me posting about pickles. My most recent was that I got my cats some new cat toys that were pickles.
They were pickles, yeah. As you can imagine, we do have a Kierkegaard's Corner list for people who are experiencing existential dread. That has been a very popular channel the last 10 days or so. Couldn't tell you why. But it has been.
We really need to rename that to like Derek's Dark Corner.
No, I feel like honoring the contributions of Soren Kierkegaard to society is important, and we're probably the only we're probably the only Discord in the Flesh and Blood space that offers a specific channel for existential dread. Just gonna throw that out there, and having it be Kierkegaard's Corner is near and dear to my heart, because existentialism gives you a good understanding of how fucked you are. So does Derek's Dark Corner. I get that, but for me. This is one that's for me.
Okay.
And then because the Jackals asked for it, I added a comics with Kasai channel because they wanted it. And that's actually been really busy too since I added it. So it turns out that Aldorte, big like Alan Moore guy.
Yeah, but also big like help at sending me stuff about immigrating to Switzerland. So
he's a beyond reproach.
Just saying, I got those DMs, Aldorte. So thank you.
Yeah, that man has also been trying to convince the two of us to go to Switzerland forever now at this point. We may have to just abide him.
Yeah, the dude abides.
The dude abides. Yeah, I guess that's our show. In and out, nice and clean, hour and a half. Feels good.
Yeah.
Feels good because we probably won't have many of those left. We only have two. We have one episode between now and 156. The day the earth will stand still.
Yeah.
But and until next week, everybody, take care of yourself, take care of each other. The world may seem like it's burning. That doesn't mean you have to stand in the middle of it. So I love you all. Have a great one. Bye.